All right. Well, welcome back to Always on the Hunt. This is Leo Golubitsky with Bird Dog Talent. Thank you for joining us again. And today we have a special guest, Dan Ferrisi. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Leo. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining. So let me introduce Dan, although I feel like he needs no introduction, but Dan Ferrisi is a technology journalist who covers the commercial AV and electronic and physical securities industries, currently serving as group editor, commercial and security at Emerald, where he oversees the commercial integrator and security sales and integration brands, with a focus on helping integrators run their businesses better. Dan and his team have a mission-driven approach to journalism, leaning heavily on business best practices and adaptive evolution to drive greater efficiency and profitability. He's active on the trade show scene. I'm sure you'll see him all at Infocom and others, and maintains an active presence on social media, including and especially as part of the hashtag AV Tweets community. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Leo, for having me. Always an honor to join you and be asked to be a part of these kinds of things.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely wanted to have you as our first guest, based off of your role in our industry. Obviously, Commercial Integrator magazine, I think, is probably the most read, magazine in our space. I know I read it every month. So I wanted to kind of bring you on for you to share your insights and your viewpoint of the industry. I think you get a lot of inside knowledge and inside views of what's going on from different companies and different places. So I thought you could definitely bring some interesting perspectives to the listeners. So why don't we start off by kind of introducing you a little bit more, as far as your background and your career and how you got to this really important position.
Well, thank you again, Leo, for the very kind words. So I've been a technology journalist for about 20 years. I started my career with a publication. It's no longer in existence, but it was called Sound and Communications. It originally had been founded in 1955, so probably a lot of the older timers in the industry are very familiar with it, focused a lot on case studies and things of that nature. So I spent a lot of time with that publication. I departed the publication in 2021 and then was recruited over to join Emerald and Commercial Integrator, and I've been with Emerald ever since. But as you said in my introduction, we really do kind of have a mission-driven approach to what we do. We try to help integrators run their business better, more profitably, more effectively, with a future-minded approach, as opposed to following the approaches that might have worked 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, but that are outmoded at this point. We really try to be a business handbook and give integrators the opportunity to optimize themselves for a turbulent but potentially very profitable future.
Nice. And like I said, I read it all the time. I make sure to, as every month it comes out, it's the first thing I do is flip through and read articles. And I know when I was an integrator, it definitely helped. And now I see all the good advice and so forth you help, you guys share with the readers. Tell me, how'd you get into the AV industry, and why the AV industry?
Well, AV, I have to say, was purely by chance. I mean, I graduated from Hofstra with a journalism degree, and I was looking to be a journalist in really any capacity, be it newspaper. I interviewed with community newspapers. It just so happened there was a job at Testa Communications, my former employer, and it was in the AV industry. But honestly, when I came across some of the terminology that I first encountered, I was totally unfamiliar to me. I remember the first time I heard the word digital signage, I thought it might have been those like pads you had to sign with a pen when you were trying to sign like a credit card thing. Maybe that's digital signage. I had no idea what it was. Right. But my mentor, David Silverman, the one who hired me, he saw something in me in terms of having journalistic credibility, journalistic chops. And he said, I can teach you technology. You can learn technology for yourself, but I can't teach you to be a journalist. I can't teach you the mechanics of being able to report and interview and write and elucidate complex ideas in comprehensible language. So he saw in me something that was not technological or about AV, but that he could build upon and he could train me in AV. And fortunately, he was a fantastic mentor. He taught me a lot and he set me on a career path where I am today.
Nice. And, as you've been in the AV industry for now, 20 years? Is that about right? Wow.
Yeah.
Old timer like myself. you've obviously covered a lot of big stories over your history. Like anything that's memorable, any take us down memory lane and remind us of some of the big things that you've covered or stories you broke, and so forth.
Sure. Well, I mean, certainly, rather than specific individual stories, I think I'd probably focus more on trends because I think stories come and go, but the trends are really enduring. And one of the trends we've covered continually, and when I think back, like my first Infocom 2005 to the present, the migration from really kind of bulky, expensive, hardware-centric rooms to more soft codec kind of solutions. I remember going to Infocom in the mid-aughts, and you would see like hundreds of thousands of dollars, $1 million systems for like telepresence and conferencing and things like that. And now so much of it is done by Zoom and by Microsoft Teams, and you're trying to find ways to kind of bulk it down a little bit and have it be more software centric and more easier for the users to adopt. Because it's one thing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars for technology. It's another thing to make sure people are actually leveraging it. So it's been fascinating to see that migration from hardware centric rooms to soft codec solutions. Also, just the continuing coming together of technology trades. And we certainly exemplify that at CI and SSI because we brought together commercial integrator and security sales and integration. It used to be the case that I think each of the technology trades was kind of siloed or was perceived in a siloed way, or at least perceived themselves in a siloed way. But now I hear more AV integrators talking about security than ever before. We have our CD Expo co-located with Commercial Integrator Expo. So Resi and commercial, the lines are blurring a little bit. So those are some of the stories that I've kind of traced internally and covered as well in our publications over the years. I think the technology trades are blurrier now than they've ever been before. And I think it's an exciting opportunity, especially if you want to be kind of a Renaissance man integrator or a master systems integrator. If you want to own a commercial space, there are a lot of different things you can put your hands in to potentially ingratiate yourself to the client and just expand your aperture, widen your aperture of what you're doing on the job site.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of opportunities. And it's funny, you kind of reminded me of something that we used to experience a lot when I was running my integration firm. Again, we mainly did residential. We did some like commercial as well, but I can't tell you how many houses I'd walk into and, just to meet with the clients as they're building their new houses, and they would want to come and show me their existing equipment rack. And they're like, this is what I have. I have no idea how it works, and so, that's one of the things that we always prided ourselves on. Was like, hey, we're focused on the user experience, not on the hardware itself. And, you mentioned the security and the audio AV integration. And I think IT is obviously a big part of that as well. Where do you, as you see this continuing, going, what are some of the trends that you're kind of, thinking about, or where are the big opportunities in 2025 when we look at that?
Well, I think the opportunity, especially as these trades come together, really are evergreen. And the term I mentioned, master systems integrator, the idea that your firm, if you're able to upskill yourself enough, you can go onto a job site in a corporate, Fortune 500 company or an education campus and say, not only can I handle networking, I can handle AV, I can handle access control. Maybe I can help with environmental control, climate control. I can help with all these things. If you can be that one throat to choke or that one hand to shake, I think there's a lot of opportunity for you because it's just natural. If you're the end user technology manager, the decision maker, you would like to have one person you can count on as opposed to having 4 or 5 different trades, each of which is siloed and each of which works independently. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I also think there's a lot of opportunity as regards to the experience economy. When I talked to Sean Wargo from Avixa about where he sees, above market level growth, as far as the benchmark of what overall industry growth is versus segment by segment growth. I think live events, experiential entertainment, things like the Sphere or shared, what is the term? Shared reality, where you can go to a place like Cosm and get a metaphorical front row seat to boxing events and things like that in a communal environment on a large screen with food and drink. I think that's where there's a lot of opportunity in 2025. I think it's going to be a little bit less so maybe with UC&C because I think a lot of that adaptive expenditure has already taken place during the pandemic era. cetera. I think a
Right.
lot of people's conferencing setups are already pretty good. So it's not as though there isn't a whole lot more that could be done there. So don't mistake me. But I think in terms of above market level growth, the experience economy, leisure time, immersion, storytelling, those I think are some of the biggest opportunities in 2025.
Right. So you mentioned so many interesting things there. So let me pick up on the conferencing thing, because I think 2024 was a challenging year for a lot of companies, right? As you mentioned, coming out of COVID, I think a lot of companies spent their money and upgraded their systems, and then all of a sudden, um, maybe didn't have the needs. And like you mentioned, a lot of it's going from heavy equipment to software and codecs and so forth. Um, do you view that as maybe a threat that if companies aren't adapting, if they're not saying, all right, well, I got to find new revenue streams that they're going to continue to decline?
Well, what I would say is that there's a threat if you're purely a provider of commodity. I mean, if what you can provide is no more than setting up a soft codec kind of a system, you may well be going the way of the dinosaur. I don't want to say that, cavalierly, but you need to sell your knowledge and sell your expertise and sell your value and sell your counsel. And I think the way that you do that, the way to get around that, especially in the UC&C category, is by trying to subscriptionize what you're doing, focus on a recurring revenue approach, 24/7 accessibility, zero downtime, being able to remote in and fix things before anyone even knows that they're broken, minimizing the support tickets and being proactive as opposed to reactive. I think that is really beneficial because it makes you invaluable, especially for those who don't want any downtime at all. They expect that continuous uptime. If you can be that strategic advisor and that 24/7, 365 partner, that's going to be something you can charge a premium for. And if it's subscriptionized and you get it monthly or quarterly, whatever it is, it's going to smooth out your own cash flow, and it's going to increase those client touch points. You're going to become indispensable to that organization. You're not merely going to be like an in-person version of Amazon where you're just a provider of a commodity. Right. You're going to be a facilitator of an outcome. And if you can transition your business from providing a commodity to facilitating an outcome, guaranteeing an outcome is a better way of saying it, guaranteeing an outcome, then you will be able to be very successful in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, guaranteeing an outcome. I like that. I feel like a lot of the things that are going on right now on the commercial side happen to the residential side, on the city side, where, companies like Sonos and Ring, the larger tech companies have come in and kind of commoditized, a lot of the services and hardware. So, the integrators had to adapt, right? To find new revenue. And now the commercial side has to kind of do the same. Let's talk about 2024. As we're turning the calendar and it's, we're going to a new year. Tell me, like what stories from 2024 stood out to you? Like what were some of the biggest things that happened? If we were going to do a quick year in review.
Well, I think certainly M&A were some of the biggest stuff that we saw this past year. The ones that immediately come to mind would certainly be QSC coming together with Acuity Brands, Resideo acquiring Snap One. I think those were probably the two biggest merger and acquisition stories of the year. And it will be very interesting, from my perspective at least, to see kind of how the unique DNA that defined those organizations is retained or is modified in a more merged environment. QSC, just as an example, people who follow QSC for many years know it has a very unique and powerful DNA. And I'm curious how that DNA continues to persist and thrive under Acuity Brands. But M&A, I think it's been very noticeable and curious this year. I'm excited to see where things go. And I think, the talent issue, and I know we're going to be talking more about talent going on, is something that has been an evergreen topic, not just in 2024, but really throughout recent years. Every bit of editorial coverage we did, like looking back at 2024, looking ahead to 2025, there was a lot of hand-wringing about, are we going to find qualified talent? How are we going to find them? How are we going to retain them? How can we upskill our existing workforce so that they can backfill our executives when they decide to retire or sell their business? Who is going to be the next executive? Who is going to be upskilled enough to be able to hold the reins of this organization and lead as well as she does or he does? And it just struck me that every time we sent out a questionnaire, all open-ended, to both security individuals and AV individuals and asked them for trends and concerns and worries and what people should act upon, talent came back almost 100 times out of 100. So it's really interesting.
I always, it's funny too, because I started my integration company back in 1999, right? So it's 25 plus years ago. And our number one challenge was talent, right? Finding good help, finding technicians or salespeople that could understand our tech and sell it and explain it well. And I always, you see all these companies, like you said, it's evergreen, right? 25 years, people are still saying talent's, if not their number one, it's always in their top three, right? But there are other issues like efficiency in the warehouse or any type of software. They'll invest heavily into that. But then I'll always ask them, like, hey, what are you doing to invest in your talent issue? And companies will be like, good question, right? And they'll keep doing the same thing that hasn't worked for them for the last 20 years, and they'll keep doing the same stuff. And it's just like, what's it going to take for you to realize that you need to proactively invest in talent?
You do, and really at all levels of the organization. As I say, both incoming, young men and women to fill the entry levels and then rise up within the organization, as well as people in the organization right now who may be perhaps suitable to be the next CEO or CFO or managing director, but need to just get their skills upskilled a little bit to be able to fill her shoes or his shoes, because that's a lot of responsibility to take the reins of a major integration organization, and it's not easy to transition from middle management or an effective salesperson or whatever it is and take the reins.
Right. Yeah. And look, not everyone's meant to, you eventually promote up to the point of no longer being competent, right? So there's a lot of times that you see people promote up and then they're like, it's funny. I have a lot of VP of sales reach out to me and they're like, can you get me back into an individual contributor role? Like, I don't want to manage anymore. So it's not always grass is always greener, or what you think is a promotion is not always a promotion. So let's talk about the talent. Let's talk about what do you see? Like, what are some of the trends or the efforts that companies are doing out there that's successful or working, or where do you see opportunities for companies to, kind of, address their talent issues?
Well, I'm certainly impressed by some organizations that have really extensive in-house internship programs. I think of Crestron, for example. I visited their Rockley offices a number of different times for their internship-related events at the end of the summer. And I just think it's so important for an organization to invest the time and the person power to try to attract young talent by building out internship programs that get people right out of college. They may still be in college. Make them aware of your organization, not just our industry as a whole, that's important too, but your organization specifically as a potential employer when they graduate, and grab those people before another industry or another trade or another company can do so. So my hat's off to Crestron, and that's just one example among several where they really do important in-house internship programs. The other thing I'd mention is next level learning. George Chaco from Pace University, one of the founders of that, really impressed by their efforts to try to build relationships with schools, with educators, with industry stakeholders across the country, and just facilitate that next generation, A, being aware of us, and B, kind of shepherding them to us as an industry. I was at their AV Talent Summit at Pace University in Pleasantville, New York, a couple of months ago. It was a real success. It was the second annual one, and there was more people than ever. A lot of industry stakeholders from a lot of different, manufacturers and integrators and programmers and all that. All of them were there. And I think it really gave people an opportunity to understand the breadth of what the AV industry and the integration industry industry broadly has to offer. And I also just want to say I'm impressed by how many employers, when I see them on LinkedIn and otherwise just have conversations with them, are thinking about expanding beyond traditional talent pools, the same old people, and trying to find diverse candidates, underrepresented candidates, women, racial, ethnic, sexual minorities, people who are maybe not the most prevalent at Infocom or ISC right now, but who have so much they can contribute. And I think it really is important to try to diversify what our industry looks like. We want to look like the society we serve because we're creating experiences for that society. We want to be able to think about and adopt the persona of and live as though we are that society we're serving if we're going to serve that society well and give them experiences that are going to be indelible and unforgettable and really meaningful to them. So I give credit to organizations like the Avixa Women's Council, Avixa Diversity Council, Wave It, that I've done myself some volunteer work for with Wave It to amplify that message that this industry is a wonderful place, it's an inclusive place, and there's a place for everyone, whatever your gender or age or religion or background. There's a place for everyone in our industry. And I think it's important to reach that open hand out and try to bring them in.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I got into this industry when I was, 20 years old, graduating college, and fell in love with it and spent my whole adult life in this industry and met amazing people. And I have a colleague who joined me a year ago. Never even knew what the AV industry existed, and now he's recruiting in it, and he loves it. Right, like took him to Infocom, and he had a great experience, and thought, he just realized, wait, all of this tech is in my life, and I never paid attention to it. Never realized how great it is, how cool it is. All the video walls and the sound systems. It's all very cool stuff, and the people. I say it in our show intro, but like it's really the people that make this industry, really great, and it's a cool industry. A lot of great people, laid back people. It's not uptight. It's not cutthroat. It's not aggressive. It's just a lot of good people. No matter where you turn, you always bump into another great person.
Said it exactly right. I mean, it's not about bits and bytes. It's not about lumens and foot lamberts. What it's about is experiences, and what it's about is people. And I've never found. I mean, I've been in a number of different industries. I've covered the musical instrument industry. I'm now in security. The integration industry broadly has some of the best, most engaging people because our mission is to deliver experiences. We want to put a smile on people's face. We want to give people an indelible, something they're going to take away with them, a story or a feeling or a memory that they'll carry with them maybe for days or weeks or months or years. And our technology is just a means to that end. And so many of us are so inspired by that it's just a wonderful place to be.
Right. Awesome. It's funny. You said put a smile on the face. I don't know if you know, but my integration company used to be called Smile Inc. So
I did not know that,
yeah,
and for exactly that reason, right? I mean, your aim was to put a smile on everyone's face.
Yeah, when we trained our sales staff, we said that, like, hey, look, if you get into the bits and the ohms and the watts and this and that, I'm like, just pack up your things and just walk out. Like, you need to be talking to these clients about their experience, about their lifestyles, about coming home and enjoying themselves and relaxing and being comfortable and being entertained. Like, if you get into like the specs, you're missing the bigger picture, and right. I think that's also reflective in commercial as well. All right, so employers can find candidates. You mentioned the Pace University, you mentioned the internships. Have you seen anything else going on out there that's like a good way of attracting talent?
Well, as far as attracting talent, I think certainly, as you mentioned, the internships, working with universities and things like that. As far as candidates, I would certainly recommend candidates think about, if they're not already CTS certified, getting other kind of industry-specific credentials. Because again, as you say, we're focused on the experience, and the technology is just incidental. But of course, you have to be able to leverage the technology effectively. And I think some of those industry-specific credentials will make you stand stand out to prospective employers. I think lack of trained or qualified talent is one lament I hear a lot from integrators. And it's not just about the desire to contribute, but also having the credentials or the willingness to attain the credentials to be able to contribute meaningfully. I'm also a booster of mentorship programs, and I think that's also something that candidates especially should be thinking about. Wave It, an organization I mentioned previously, Women in AV and IT, they have a mentorship program that pairs young talent with experienced mentors who can guide their career. I think that's something candidates should definitely think about, especially if they're on the younger side, finding a mentor. There are so many people in our industry who are very willing to give back. I can think about people like Corey Schaefer and Gina Sanzavero and Brandy Alvarado Miranda, all these people who so much want to give back
Right.
to an industry that has given them so much.
Yeah.
And then I just say going to events. I mean, go to events as much as possible, especially if you're a candidate that is looking for a placement in the industry. Go to CD Expo, go to Commercial Integrator Expo, go to ISE in Barcelona if you can. Network in person, forge those relationships. As you said, Leo, we're a very relationship-driven industry. We're not cliquey, we're not insular, but you really kind of have to be there. You have to swim among us,
Oh,
talk
100%.
among us, see, be seen, give out your cards, connect on LinkedIn, be active on social media, make yourself visible and make yourself part of our community, and we will repay it 1,000 times over. I found that the small investments I have made have been repaid over and over again by a very giving and loving and caring community that we have.
Absolutely. You make some deposits into people, and then you get to take out much bigger withdrawals. And this industry is very, very giving. You mentioned the CTS certification, and I think that this industry doesn't talk about this enough. That there's a lot of industries that are very focused on their college education, right? That you have to have a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD, and it's cost of college right now, right? It's ridiculous. 35,000 for a state school, 75,000 a year for a private school. Kids are coming out with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and then they go into these careers that are, very similar to the AV industry. In the AV industry, you could come in out of high school, do a mentorship, get your CTS, and work your way into a six-figure income pretty quickly. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for kids who don't want to take on that college burden and college debt, and kind of come in here and be like, all right, I could start as a technician. I can move my way up to, project management and so forth like that. There's so much upward mobility, and without the hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that other industries, cause and create, the barrier of entry is low here, right? So this is an industry that I think that more employers probably should be, marketing to the younger, and promoting the fact that you can grow rapidly in this space without taking on that huge college burden, and build out a really fun, cool career in a great industry, and where you can make some really nice, nice compensation, income, and like I said, put a career together. One of the things that I talk a lot about as a recruiter, with my clients, is like, all right, what's the career path, right? Don't just sell them the job or the opportunity, but talk to them about the career path. Show them like, hey, come in here at this level, work your way up, and this is what it looks like over the next 5 to 10 years. We talk about attracting, but also retaining. If you don't paint that vision and you don't paint that career track, then it's hard to retain people.
No, I think you're exactly right. And one of the things that I like a lot is Tom LeBlanc, the executive director of NSCA, has really emphasized to NSCA members, especially, the idea of not just a corporate ladder, but a corporate lattice. The idea that there's not just one path, where if you find yourself in an organization, you might have fantastic skills, but they don't happen to align with the job that you found yourself in. Say you're in sales, but you're not really perfectly cut out for sales, but you could do fantastically well in marketing or in personnel or HR, or as in the technical areas of the job. The idea of the corporate lattice and seeing the entire organization as almost a jungle gym to explore. You can try this and maybe try that, and find where your skills actually align best. I really love the fact that Tom has beat the drum for that, because I don't want people who are fantastically talented to just happen to find themselves in the wrong position and then steer away from the industry overall because they feel like this is not the job for me. And I really encourage integration organizations and organizations throughout the industry to try to find people's strengths and then match those strengths with a job within your organization, even if it's not the path they found. It doesn't have to be a linear ladder. It can be something broader than that.
Right. And look, again, being that we're in an industry that doesn't have a typical bachelor's degree track on it, you got to sometimes focus on finding people outside of the industry and focus on their soft skills, their grit, their work ethic, taking people that are used to working with, as far as technicians, recruiting out of the electrical or IT space and so forth. That, there's a lot of different places where you can find talent. You just have to be a little bit more creative when it comes to it.
At least until we've developed that curriculum, those majors, those minors that mention systems integration or AV integration or security integration. And I know there is some work being done on that area. You mentioned Pace and George Chaco. I know they developed, he and one of his colleagues there, a minor. I forget exactly what the minor was, but it was focused on kind of AV technology for Pace University. And maybe that's the canary in the coal mine that will develop into something much broader across the country and across the world. But until then, look at Full Sail, look at those ancillary technology trades and try to find those young people and let them know, as you say, that there are a lot of really lucrative career opportunities in the integration industry. You don't necessarily need a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or anything like that. You just need some good common sense, a willingness to learn, a willingness to try to get your CTS and to try something really fun and exciting.
Right. And I love the lattice analogy because, again, I see it all the time. Salespeople move into project management, or technical people move into sales. It's not like you just have to be a sales vertical and you can't go technical or technical can't go into sales. You could do or operations or whatnot. So it's a great industry, a lot of opportunity. I'm excited to be part of it. I love the fact that I still get to do this. I wanted to take the moment also to kind of announce, our upcoming collaboration as well. If I could do that now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited to be able to feature some of your writing very continually on commercialintegrator.com and as appropriate, maybe on securitysales.com as well, if it's not something that's AV specific. Why don't you share some information about it and we'll talk about the cadence and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the goal is for me to, write a monthly feature for your publications that will be online, right? Where to help candidates and business owners, recruit, retain talent, hire better, onboard better, build culture better. So anywhere where I can help companies and candidates grow, and be more successful. As the analogy that we use at Bird Dog is that, look, we're here to help you with your hunts. We want to help your hunts become more effective and efficient, and that's the goal. So, I'm really excited about partnering with you, Dan, and providing any value I can to the readers.
Well, we're really excited to be partnering with you as well, Leo. As I say, depending on the content, if it's AV specific, we'll keep it just on commercialintegrator.com. But if it's really for the entire integration community, maybe we'll put it on securitysales.com as well, because I think that, as I said at the outset, there are a lot of commonalities. I think we're less siloed than we've ever been before. And I'm so excited to be able to share more content that's going to enable businesses to be more effective, more efficient, hire better, recruit better, retain more effectively. It aligns with those business best practices and that mission-driven journalism that I said right from the outset.
Great. Well, I'm really excited. So, look, Dan, I appreciate you joining me and giving me your time. I think this is probably a good place for us to wrap up. So, I want to thank you again for joining, and thanks to listeners. If you're still here, appreciate you listening and joining us this week on this episode. If you can, click the like and subscribe button, give us a 5-star, right? We really appreciate that. And we look forward to you joining us next week. Dan, thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me, Leo. Really do appreciate having the opportunity to chat with you. And of course, as I say, to partner with you for more content for our commercial integrator and our security sales readers.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it. Thank you.